Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Suzanne Strader, and I serve as the assistant principal at Calvary Christian Academy. And we were looking through our dates, and Katie's first visit to our town was in 2018. She was back in 2019. We've kind of erased 2020, so we wanted to get her back in as soon as we can again here in 2021. Katie McPherson comes to us from Chandler, the big city, as we refer to it. And she has made it her mission, after spending many years on school campuses, to creating health and safe environments for kids in their homes and in the way they plug in to their friends and to the world around them. And we've all learned, even myself included, we can't remain unplugged forever, but what we can do is learn how to find that balance and that health. And Katie has amazing toolkits for us that we can employ immediately. So Katie, without much further ado, I'd like to get started so we can honor everybody's time. Katie McPherson.
Thanks so much. I see some familiar faces, so I'm so glad that some of you came back. My name is Katie McPherson, as Suzanne said. I reside in Chandler. I am a mom of 4 girls aged, they're currently 12, 14, and 15, but next month they'll be 13, 14, and 15. So I'm right in the trenches with all of you trying to figure out this digital wellness piece, and I'm just so honored to be here. Tonight's really about us leading technology instead of technology leading you. Pre-pandemic, I was on an airplane about once a week, if not twice, talking about this with students, with parents, with administrators, with police officers, with anybody that will listen, including Governor Ducey. So I'm going to have our awesome tech staff advance my slides. I just really want to give a shout out to the parents that are here and the grandparents and any community member that is a trusted adult. Parenting does not come with a manual, and so what we know to be true about parenting is you showing up and being present and showing love is the best thing you can do. So thanks for taking time out tonight and doing that for your kiddos and your community as well. On the next slide, these are typically the burning questions that I get from parents, like when should I give it? How much is too much gaming? How much is too much screen time? What should I do about this? What should I do about that? So I'm hoping tonight that not only will you have questions, but if kids, you have questions, I definitely want this to be as interactive as possible because I do believe that the kids in the room are the geniuses here. They are true digital leaders. And one of the things that I hear, One of the things that I hear from kids, I was actually here, I guess it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I asked kids, like, what do you want me to talk to your parents about tonight if I do a student assembly and then a parent night? Many hands go up and they say, please get off your device yourself. If you're going to ask me to get off my device, you need to get off your laptop and your phone too. So that's not to shame or blame or condemn anybody, but we really are probably not very good role models with technology. So for me, again, I want you to get these devices and these video games out of the middle of your relationship, because as your students age, the stakes are going to get really high. They're going to have to make some decisions that their peers are going to ask them to do, that perhaps somebody else is going to ask them to do, and you want them to be prepared. And you don't want to be fighting over a dumb device. On the next slide, I really liken kind of screen time to this big, juicy donut. Like, it tastes good, it's fun, it's what I call digital candy. So I'll go over tonight the different types of screen time, because how many kids in the room get sort of in trouble for being on a screen too much? Do you ever hear your parents nag you or say you've been on too long and your brain's turning to mush? Okay, we have one brave soul over here. Okay. We have 2 or 3 back there. Awesome. So I think we really need to define what is screen time, the different types of screen time. We know there's digital candy, which is like the fun stuff that we do as adults as well as students, but there's also digital vegetables. We all use technology probably for our work and also to better our lives. So there's good screen time for kids, and then there's screen time that we need to really balance out, and that's the digital candy. On the next slide, these are my two girls. This is a couple of years old, but one of the things that I really want to hit home tonight is, again, these kids are real world ready. They know how to use technology much better than we do. Last year during the pandemic, all of these schools were like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? We have to go home, we're giving out school-issued devices, and the kids were like, I got this, and they got on and they were fine. The adults were not fine, we're still not fine, okay? The kids had it down. They're 20,000 miles ahead of us, and I want you to use your children as your teachers. They really know a lot about this. They want to teach you. They want you to understand why they're so attracted to this. And so if we're gonna have real world ready kids, then we as adults have to be real world ready too. Just a little bit about my professional experience. I started out as a Spanish teacher. I'm originally from Michigan. I moved here because there were no Spanish teaching jobs. There were like 10,000 Spanish teaching jobs here. So I came and I was like, oh, I'll try it for a couple years. I'm 21 and maybe I'll go back to Michigan. But I do not like snow unless I'm skiing in it. I definitely don't like to drive. So I just stayed. So through the course of my career, I moved into school guidance counseling, and then I became a school principal. And through that, I was just talking to your family pastor. Around 2004 or 5, we started to see these smartphones come to campus. And the whole landscape of childhood changed. The way that kids act, the way they access information. Some of that's good, some of that's not so good. So I added up the other day that I think I've supervised almost 60,000 kids. So tonight I'll share with you some of my experiences that are great and some of them that are not so great. One of the things that I think we all need to really think about when we think about this generation of kids. So how many of you are 10 and under? We have some first, second, third, fourth graders maybe. Awesome. And how many of you are over 10 years old? Okay, awesome. We have a good mix. So those of you that are over 10 years old as children, I should have said that, are called the I generation. So the I generation does not know life without technology. Those of you that are 10 and under, you're called the Alpha generation. So both generations of kids do not know life without technology. So when I used to be on airplanes a lot, the person sitting next to me like, oh, where are you going? What do you do? And I would tell them like, oh, kids these days, they're so awful. They're always on those devices and they go on and on. And I was like, okay, let me share with you some other things that are going on. So if we are to look at these two generations, I just want to point out some other massive stressors that are going on, and this was pre-pandemic. Academics are really important now. We've taken away recess minutes in the name of academics. Our foods have changed. There's a constant media stream of what's going on. And we've also named that almost everything that happens in our schools is bullying. So I'm going to just choose, is there a brave, like maybe 12, 13-year-old here that would be willing to be a volunteer? Okay. What's your name? Cherish. Okay, so Cherish. What grade are you in? 7th? Yeah. Okay, 7th grade. So what percentage of like 7th grade, like girl, we call it, girl drama, girl stuff, would you say is like pretty typical? Like, and then what percentage is like really, really bad? Would you say like 85% is pretty typical and 15% is really bad? Or what would you say the percentage is?
Well, I don't really think of it in percents. Like, there are cliques at my school.
Uh-huh.
Popular girls are normally the ones who gossip, but everyone has their own, like, little bit of drama. Like, it reaches everyone else. And
Right. So 7th grade is typically, I would say we're starting to see some of this type of behavior in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, right? So we used to see it a little bit later, but around 1999 when we had Columbine happen, and around 2001 when we had 9/11 happen, we all freaked out. We as adults freaked out and said, the world's unsafe, you can't go outside because somebody might kidnap you. So I haven't pulled the stats of Lake Havasu City, but I'm pretty sure you haven't had a stranger abduction. The kids that want to go out to play are pretty safe in this city. I've met your police chief. I've met many community leaders. This is a safe place to grow up. It's a smaller place to grow up. So we displaced some of our anxiety onto our kids and said, this place is not safe. And then we handed over a device with access to 4 billion strangers. and said, you're cool in your bedroom, you're super safe, right? The people that are hurting our students, that are preying on our students, are typically people that we know. We know that to be true, and I know there are some pain points around that, right? So we have to, as adults, really look at what does safety mean and what is bullying. Most of the stuff that came to my office as a principal was just two typical kids having a conflict. But after those two life events happened, we said, nobody can touch my kid, nobody can call my kid a name, and nobody better look at my kid the wrong way or else I'm marching down to the school. So we set up this framework as there's a bully and there's a victim. And I believe that if you really look at most things that happen, they're two really good kids just having a conflict, right? Now, yes, there's malicious harassment, intimidation, etc. Those are when we want you to intervene. But I'm going to show you a slide of what's happening because we're intervening too much, is that these kids are relying on these devices to fight their battles, and it's not going well at all. On the next slide, one of the things that I'm concerned about and that I would like you to consider is when we post as adults, when we put out so-and-so had a soccer match, so-and-so had a cheer competition, so-and-so got all A's. What we're posting to the world is our front stage. I'm sure if I went to any of your platforms tonight, you would have some beautiful children, some beautiful vacations, photos of your boat out there. That's your front stage. I probably wouldn't see literally your laundry room with all the dirty laundry in it. I probably wouldn't see the fight you got into on the way here because you dragged your kid here for extra credit. I wouldn't see any of the backstage stuff, right? So these two generations that are sitting in front of you need to know what real life is. They need to know that you sacrificed. They need to know how you have failed. Because what they're seeing online is everybody's front stage, and they think that everybody has it better than them. And we know that's not true. And even as adults, we struggle with that when we look at some of these platforms. So these two generations really need our help in knowing that failure is okay, and that when you fail, you can fail forward and learn from it. On the next slide, one of the things, especially as a mom of 4 girls, so I get a lot of calls from parents asking, like, why does my child want to take 17,000 duck face selfies of herself? Okay, so let's talk about prior to age 2, we have taken about 2,000 photos of each of your children. So if you have 4 kids, that's a whole lot of photos. So as you're out and about, as you're going to these events, I'm not saying don't take photos, but what these two generations know to be true is life is to be documented. Everywhere we go, my parents make me stand in a certain way, and if Caden's not smiling, we have to take another photo. And we're now swimming with dolphins in Florida, and so we have to take 75 photos of the dolphin because this is an amazing moment, right? So those are all great things. I want you to go on those great vacations. I want you to memorialize and take photos. But what we know to be true is when we hand these devices over, they're just playing monkey see, monkey do. They want to do the same thing. So I hear a lot of blaming and shaming that they're always on their device and they always want to post because they're watching us do it. So we have to take some ownership of that and really take a step back. On the next slide, this is sort of what I was talking about with the bullying. So what we're currently seeing, and this is pre-pandemic, and we know the pandemic has had, for some students, some isolating effects. What we said in 1999 through 2001 is, if somebody hurts you and pokes you with a pencil in 2nd grade, go tell your teacher. If somebody kicks you under the desk, go tell that guy. If somebody slams you into the locker in the locker room, go tell the principal. So we took typical kid stuff that happens all the time that we did as kids, and we said, you can't handle your stuff because that must be a bully, and gave it to the adult. So these children are like, hey, Mom and Dad, can you do my homework? Hey, Mom and Dad, I didn't make the 8th grade basketball team. Can you call the coach? Hey, Mom and Dad. And we are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for them. And I want you to know that these children in this room are fully capable of handling their own stuff if given the opportunity. So what I'm saying is when typical things happen, I want you to push it back on them and have them problem solve. Because what's happening in many of our schools and many of our communities is we have very high achieving kids who are doing great things, all sorts of accolades that can't tie their shoe, basically. They just can't problem solve through a typical problem. And we're seeing a high rate of anxiety and depression and self-harm going on with both of these generations. And a lot of that is, I don't know how to cope. I don't know how to get on the other side of this pain. And so if we can reframe that not everything is bullying, that you're going to have conflict, and that you should have a voice in your own conflict, your child's maturity will go way up. How many kids in this room are tired of hearing the word bullying? I am. She and I are on the same page. She should be my apprentice. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't even really use the word anymore because to me, there's a very small percentage of that going on in person. Now, online, that's a totally different story, and I'll talk about that in a minute. On the next slide, please. One of the ways that I think we can get back to a good baseline is really recognizing that these devices are an obstacle and they are an obstruction. So the 4 pillars of child development are nature, movement, physical touch, and connection. So typically, pre-pandemic, I would have you stand up and give each other an 8-second hug. So because we're still in the middle of whatever this is, I would like you just to turn to the person next to you and do a virtual, like, you don't have to touch each other, just a virtual air high five and count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that was awesome. That was movement, physical touch, and connection. You could hear the laughter in the room, and you can hear, like, if you did a temperature gauge, the temperature in the room just went up. And that's because we're connecting like real humans again. And that's what needs to happen in our communities. It has to happen at home. These kids are desperately looking for physical touch and connection. They're wildly connected to these devices, but some of them are very lonely. This generation has been named the loneliest generation we have, even though they're wildly connected. And so physical touch, movement, and connection will bring the whole family back to baseline. On the next slide, please. So tonight's really about, I usually get questions about how much screen time, when should I give a phone, when should I allow social media? I think you really need to get clear about what is your desired outcome. So you can give a really dumb smartphone. If you want to know that your child's walking home from school and that he or she is safe, you can give he or she the ability to text you, to FaceTime you, or to actually call you like a real person. You can do that. That's a dumb smartphone. There are many companies out there, Gab Wireless, Pinwheel, and your own like Verizon, Cricket, whatever you have, you can dumb down a phone. You do not have to give the internet to your 10-year-old for his birthday. This is where the kids start to hate me a little bit, sorry. But we really, I get the question a lot, when should I give the phone? Well, remember the phone, they don't use the phone much. It's a tiny computer. And so what access do you want to allow on the phone is really what we're talking about tonight, in part. Next slide, please. One of the things that I think we also need to talk about is sleep. So how many adults, if you're really super honest, keep your phone next to your head on the nightstand? A lot of you, right? And how many of you, if you're really honest with me, might grab it during the night and scroll through something? Especially if you can't sleep. Okay, so the temptation for adults is there. The temptation for children is there. If there is one golden nugget I can leave you with tonight, if there's one protective factor that you can give to your family, protect your sleep. Sleep is crucial for these kids. If you are age 0 through 30, you need 8 to 12 hours of sleep. Most of our kids are getting about 4 to 6 hours a night if they're in 6th through 12th grade because they're jamming athletics, academics, doing homework, and then getting on their device and scrolling all night long. Nothing good happens after 9 o'clock on a device with a child. Nothing. Somebody gets in a fight, somebody looks at something inappropriate, somebody's gaming all night long. Whatever it is, these brains are overmaxed. So when we talk about when should I give, how much should I give, what time should I shut it off, think about those 8 to 12 hours of sleep. That is truly the crux of what's going on with youth mental health. When we look at any of those things I named, anxiety, depression, self-harm, sleep is the underpinning of all of that. Most of those kiddos are really struggling with sleep. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a question for the kids. So the top brain is digital vegetables, the bottom brain is digital candies. So who can tell me what an example of digital vegetables would be? So digital vegetables is good content, redeeming things that are good for your life. So what is an example from this school or your school of digital vegetables? Anybody brave enough? When do you use a computer or an iPad or device and do something good on it? Yes. Can you be super loud? Reading a book. So that would be digital vegetables, okay? Another example of digital vegetables. Yes. Searching schoolwork. Okay, Cherish. Yeah. Venting to your friends. That's digital vegetables. That's good for your youth mental health, right? So examples of digital candy. How many of the kids play on digital candy? Okay, what would you name as digital candy? She said this. What's your favorite digital candy? Do you play a game or an app that you like? The TV? Okay, so TV can be digital candy or digital vegetables. Yes. Among Us. Okay, so that's an example of digital candy. Yes, in the middle there. Yeah. What's it called? Pavlo? It's a VR game. So VR is virtual reality, for those of you that might not know. In the back there. On the left, yeah. Minecraft. What else? Same. Okay. So TikTok, Instagram, Minecraft, Roblox, Among Us, Call of Duty. Now, how many of the adults use digital candy? Mucho adults use digital candy, right? So where we get concerned about any of our brains, but especially the tiny brains in the room, the top brain has really good blood flow. They're probably being verbal emotive, which means talking, connecting, being a real human, using digital content, right? Computers are here to stay. We're integrating technology in the classroom. We are not going backwards. On the bottom is digital candy. So you'll notice the blood flow is completely depleted. They're probably, if they are talking on a video game, that's not really the verbal emotive skills we want. The rage and the screaming at each other, that's not really the verbal emotive skills we want. I'm after, can you interview for a job? Can you walk up to a nice girl and ask her out on a date, not on text message or Snapchat? Those are the skills that I'm after, right? So where I get worried about kids is that big tech is after 3 things. So I'm going to ask the kids, what do you think the makers of the video games want the most from you? What's the number 1 thing they want? Do you have a guess? There's no wrong answer. Yeah, so money is huge. What's the second thing they might be after? Yes, in the back, blue shirt. Light blue shirt, I should say. Yeah, so they want to keep you on as long as possible, get you to invite your friends, and make a ton of money, right? So those are the top 3 things. So when your child is on social media, any sort of digital candy, video games, the goal of the industry is to take that tiny brain and shove it as deep into the brainstem. That's where your brain and your neck come together. The only choice your child has in that moment is, I'm going to fight somebody, so verbally or physically or both. I'm going to flee. I'm going to walk away from you when you're nagging me. Or I'm going to freeze, and I'm just going to stare at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't know it was dinner. I didn't know it was dinner. Okay? Those are the only 3 choices that they have. If you were to put a heart rate monitor or a blood pressure watch on your child while they played a video game, you might be horrified, because the goal of the industry is to amp up the central nervous system as much as possible so that they don't want to get off. So strategies for what to do when they're amped up. You may have had a child get off a video game and hit their sister. You may have had a child get off a video game and be very lethargic and unmotivated. That is not your child. That is dopamine, cortisol, serotonin. All these hormones are dumping on their brains, and their bodies are like this. So to get that out, drinking water will dissipate all of that. Moving their body will also dissipate that. I would not try to have a conversation with a child that just got off a game if you want it to mean something, because their brain is in the brainstem. You need it up here. Are there any questions on this piece right here? Because this is a very important piece. Digital vegetables, digital candy. Yes, sir.
So if your child goes from gaming to homework, what would be a good routine? Like the amount of time?
Right. So I'm a big fan of chunking homework and taking snack breaks and water breaks, because sometimes homework is a long time. They've had a long day. So I'm a big fan, routine-wise, of decompressing after school. Perhaps they get a little bit of digital candy, start their homework, have dinner, and then depending on what time bedtime is, I want kids off devices at least an hour before bedtime. So this comes into play with video gaming, with when can the classmates play? Because if your dad is super cool and lets you play whenever, and my dad is super strict and I only have this time, it's very difficult for the peer group to do that. So it's wise if you can get everybody together and be like, okay, when are we gonna play? Because it's super frustrating for these kids to get on, and then you're like, you have to get off. And the worst thing, especially in my experience at least for kids, is when mean mom or dad makes you get off, then they don't want you to play the next day because your mom's not very nice. And so it is a very big social exclusionary deal. So getting that routine in place is ideal, and protecting sleep. Also, I don't think I mentioned on the sleep front, get the devices out of the bedroom and the bathrooms. Do not charge the devices where your child sleeps. It's too tempting to just grab it and scroll or grab it and play. They need to be in parent bedroom, kind of on lockdown. I've had people tell me that their teenager has literally crawled in, taken the phone out, put a sock in it, flipped it over so it looks like full, and crawled back up. I probably would have done the same thing. So we're protecting their sleep, we're protecting their brains. On the next slide. So just talking about screen time. So there's active screen time, passive screen time. So you talked about your digital candy is TV. So just like YouTube, there's digital candy YouTube and digital vegetable YouTube. So are there any golfers in this audience? Okay, so how do you get better at your golf swing? Practice driving range. So how might a boy who's trying to get better at video games get more strategy? Well, he's gonna go to YouTube and he's gonna watch somebody else play so he can get more strategy. So I often get the question, why on earth is my kid watching somebody else play this video game? The same reason she might go to YouTube to improve her golf swing. She wants strategy. So defining for your family, is this digital vegetables or digital candies? So parents will walk by a screen like, get off the screen, you've been on too long. And then you look and you're like, oh, he's actually doing like something really redeeming. That's digital vegetables, right? So not all screen time is created equal. So when you think about screen time, something I'd love for you to consider, what are the 3 C's? What connection is your child making? Are they actually connecting with other people somewhere else that you know that are safe? What's the context? And how are they using this to better their life? So content, context, and connection. So when you're screaming about screen time, take a minute and say like, oh, is this digital vegetables or digital candy? And kids, my recommendation at the end of tonight is gonna be sit down as a family in about a week and figure out what you as a child think is enough digital candy and what mom and dad think, and find a middle ground. Because this is ruining our families. This is like tearing marriages apart, it's tearing kids apart, and when the stakes are high. In this room, there are, who's the youngest person? How old are you? You're 9. Do we have anybody who's 7? 6? 8. Okay, we have an 8-year-old. So the average age of trying drugs or alcohol is 9 through 11 years old. The average age of somebody showing your child something inappropriate or your child accidentally finding it online is 9 years old. The average age of somebody at your child's school saying, hey, you want to try this, is 12 years old. So we want to start 5 years before that and be having big conversations around what would you do if? We want the communication to be open. What's currently happening in America is something like this. Merry Christmas, here's your new iPad. You hit your brother, give me your iPad. I'm so tired after work, here's your iPad. You didn't do well in math, give me your iPad. So that dance that we're all doing, in the middle of that dance, you are losing your child. You're losing relationship with your child. And when the stakes are really high, all those things I just named, they're gonna go around you. They're gonna ask another 12-year-old, should I do this? And the other 12-year-old's probably gonna say yes. You want to keep the communication open. You don't want these devices to be an obstruction. All right, next slide, please. Okay, we're gonna watch a short, 8 seconds of Sesame Street, and then we're gonna watch 8 seconds of Fortnite. What I want you to pay attention to is how many characters go across the screen. So going back to digital candy, one character moving across the screen is pretty passive. So this is TV of years past. Fortnite is a first-person shooter game that moves very quickly, that has a lot of animation, a lot of color, a lot of competition and collaboration. There's actually some digital vegetables in gaming, and I will name that in a second. So what I'd like you to do is to count to 8 seconds and tell me how many characters move across the screen. All right, let's play Sesame Street, please. So that was about 8 seconds. Okay, that was also about 8 seconds. So there were 1, 2, obviously the wagon. We're gonna go to the next slide and the Fortnite clip, please.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mighty Go. We're back again with another video. Today's video, we're gonna hop into episode number 2 of this Fortnite Save the World series. The last video.
Can you fast forward? It didn't. The clip that I chose. Can you just fast forward it to where they're actually playing the game?
See what happens. Let's freaking do it. Let me make sure my mic's
So
on,
I want you to notice the headset, and he's screaming, right? So the industry created the headset on purpose so that parents can't hear what's going on.
What's up,
And there's some
everybody?
stuff going on that you probably need to know about, right? So we're gonna just, can you go back to the Fortnite clip? So what I want you to watch for in the clip is put aside the gun for now. I want you to watch how quickly the scene moves, if we can get it to play. Nope. Can you is there a way to drag it across like the clip? If not, it's okay. Sometime you should pull up a video game and just watch how quickly, it moves so fast and these brains are trying to keep up. So imagine a kid playing this game with this guy screaming for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It's too much for the brain to handle. You can just go to the next slide. We'll tag that later. Can you go one more slide? Sorry. My clicker doesn't reach that far. I usually can be a little more fluid. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a trick question. Cherish, do you have any friends you wanna pick on tonight? Do you have a friend you want me to choose? Sarah? Skylar. Skylar? Where is Skylar? Oh, right here. Okay, so Skylar, do you ride horses? You have? Okay. So if I had a horse and I was out in the parking lot, who's in charge of the horse or the rider? The rider's in charge. Okay, so now I'm gonna change the scene up a little bit. If a garbage truck came around the corner and I was riding through this parking lot on a horse, who would be in charge, the horse or the rider? The rider. Okay, so how many people in the room think if I were riding the horse through the parking lot, that the rider would be in charge of the horse when the garbage truck came around the corner? We have several half riders. Okay, what about the horse? Horses? Okay, so I'm gonna pick on you. Why do you think it's the horse? Yeah. Panic. Okay, so adults in the room, your children have half of a developed brain if they are 12 or 15. So if you have a 12-year-old girl or a 15-year-old boy, their brain is half developed. So full development for females is somewhere between 22 to 24. Full development for males is 28 to 30. So the children in this room, or anybody under 30, is still developing their brain. So when we as parents charge into a room and say, "Get off that screen," we are the garbage truck, and your child is the 1,500-pound horse. Our children are very limbic, just like horses. So I would like you to consider not spooking your horse. Not spooking your horse. So what does that look like? That looks like screaming. That looks like not telling them something and then saying like, "Oh, after school, we're actually going to the orthodontist to get your braces," without telling them. That's a surprise, right? That's like, whoa, wait, what? So our children live in this fight, flight, freeze most of their waking day. So when they get home to you, they just want to decompress. They've been at school with people they like, and then some people that are kind of annoying, and then some people they might not like that are making their life miserable. They don't want to be spooked when they get home. And when they're on their device, if you want them to get off, the approach is not to come at them like the garbage truck. Because the more you come at them like the garbage truck, the more they react, and the less the relationship moves forward. So a lot of what's going on with device use is you are the garbage truck, and they are the horse. And they are totally bucking you off, and they are winning. They are totally winning, and it's not their fault. They have a very underdeveloped brain. Many people read articles about kids are burning their brain out on screen time. They're never going to amount to anything. Like, I want you to take those articles and put them in the trash. We don't have the data to say if your child video games for 9 hours a day, he's going to amount to nothing. There are very successful people, adults, probably in this room, that game and are still living a pretty great life. When we look at the 5 markers of wellness, how is your child's hygiene? How is their sleep? How is their behavior at home? How is their behavior at school? And how are their grades? If any of that's derailing, they don't get the privilege of using technology. When we handed it over for Christmas, they're like, "Oh, this is mine," but it's in your name. And you are liable for anything that happens on that device. And so we have to reframe that technology is a privilege, not a right. And if you do these 5 things, you sleep, you brush your teeth, you actually brush your hair and take a shower, you get good grades and try to do your best, and you behave at home and at school, sure, you can have some digital candy and digital vegetables. But we've got to flip the script, because I know there's some deep pain points in this room around technology. All right, next slide, please. Lastly, on the note of pain, we have 2 choices with pain. We either transmit it on someone else, so tiny brains are gonna spew venom online, they're gonna say things they don't mean, kids are gonna come at them all the time, or they're going to transform their pain. I think most of us would probably admit it took us probably well into our 30s before we were able to be like, yeah, I'm not gonna react to that person, I'm gonna transform that pain. On the next slide, one of the things that we continue to see, not only nationally, but specifically in the state of Arizona, we've got a bunch of kids doing really well. Some of the children in this room are stressed out, and they're moving into that lane of distress. We want kids to have a little bit of good stress, so they stretch and grow, and they know what to do when they're stressed. We call it stress tolerance. What we don't want is that they're so stressed out that they're sitting in what we call distress. We have too many children in America and Arizona sitting in that lane. We absolutely don't want kids moving into crisis. It is very difficult to take a child from crisis back to wellness. So I want you to pay attention to wellness, a little stressed out. How am I going to move my kid back to wellness? It's easy to do if you don't spook your horse. It's easy to do if the whole family's getting good sleep. It's easy to do if you're connecting like humans and putting your own device down. It's hard to do if you're super busy and you're allowing an iPad to basically be your kid's babysitter. And for some of us, it's really hard. We're really busy. On the next slide, please. I often get the question about, what if I see something on my kid's device and there's another kid that I know those parents, or I know who the kid is, or he's a classmate of my child, and he said something concerning, he said something inappropriate, he made a threat, whatever it is. Everybody in this room is a villager, and we have to be a good village. When we look at the things that we're worried about, somebody harming our child, somebody coming to school and harming the whole school with a weapon, those are the things that we worry about. 6 to 8 weeks before those things occur, children know what's going on with that particular child. And I've asked them, well, why didn't you come to us? Like, this happened, why didn't you come to us? And they say 2 things. I told my parents, and they flipped out and took my device away. I told them, Caden's acting weird, I don't know what's going on, he said this, and they were like, you can't hang out with Caden anymore, and I'm taking your device. Or they were like, he's fine, he'll be fine. So there's either an overreaction or there's an underreaction. So if we care about school safety, if we care about community safety, if we care about kids, every child in this room is your kid. If they are at your house eating your Oreos, they're your kid. If you're taking them to soccer practice, they are your kid. If they're at your house for a sleepover, they're your kid. So don't be afraid of calling the school anonymously. You can even *86 your phone, so it's totally anonymous, and say, I saw this, concern, bye-bye. You can call another parent and say, not sure what's going on. You don't have to do a dissertation. Not sure what's going on. I saw something on Chloe's phone. This is all I know. Okay, thanks, bye. It is not a judgment on another parent. It is literally you being a good villager. And we should be able to make those phone calls without other people getting mad. Now, dads, you do a great job of this. You're like, hey, your kid said this. Okay, thanks, bye. Moms, you're like, what? My kid would never do that. No way. No. And then you're never friends with that person again, even though you've known them for 25 years. Literally, like, we're the worst. I don't know what it is, but dads do a great job. So we have someone learning to do from that. On the next slide, please. Lastly, tonight, this is my true goal wherever I go. Adults in the room, you have to figure out, these are our 4 or 5 non-negotiables. You are not to give out private information. I don't want you sharing body parts with other people. I don't want you doing this. Whatever your non-negotiables are, get super clear about those. And then kids in the room, you get to have a voice in the use of your own device. If we as adults are saying, I trust you with the World Wide Web, then the kids in the room have to come to the table with you, and the whole family has to figure out how much digital candy, how much digital vegetables, can I have my phone at night, can I have it on the weekends, whatever that looks like. We have to come together. Kids need dignity in the use of their device if you want to truly lead technology instead of technology leading you. So I would recommend, and I sent 2 examples to Suzanne Strader, and she's either going to send them, post them somewhere, link them so you can download a family data contract and just get an idea. There are thousands of examples on the web. Kids need to know what the rules are. We change the rules on them all the time, and then we spook our horses, and then they totally derail. All right, last couple slides, please. Lastly, just a reminder about how hard it is to be a kid. So I have girls, I have 5 sisters and 4 daughters, I have no sons and no brothers. So I know girl world really well, probably too well. So right now, being a girl is a difficult place to be, especially in person and online. It's coming at you from both places. Boys are also struggling. So can you advance the slide so the words show? Okay. So here are some characteristics of what girl world looks like. Never alone, never lonely. Don't stand out in the wrong way. Loyalty equals agreement. You don't want to look clingy or desperate. You don't want to admit when you're mad, because if you're mad, then you must be uptight. Effortlessly perfect in everything and always in the right place at the right time, which you then must post. There's an incredible amount of pressure, and Instagram has been named the worst app for female mental health because it's so visual. In boy world, which is the last slide, always chill, nothing serious, passionate about the right things, always in the right place with the right people, doing the right thing, experts at comebacks and put downs. So I don't know if you've experienced this, but the men in the room can probably say this still happens when you're 45. Like, if having quick comebacks and giving each other a hard time and roasting each other is also an adult thing too. The last thing, shoes are super important, and adult involvement means that you're making my life worse. So I get a lot of calls from parents of boys saying, he won't tell me anything, he won't open up. The best place to have conversations is in the car, shoulder to shoulder, or moving their body, throwing an object. Boys bond by moving objects through space, bodies, pencils, basketballs, soccer balls, whatever. If they are moving something, they will tell you a little bit more. So I want to leave you with some resources, and then I'll open for questions. On the last couple of slides, there should be some books, and then just kind of, a summary of what we talked about tonight. So staying in the know, having some sort of plan, having that central charging station. These slides I'm also going to send to Suzanne, so if you want a copy of them, you can print them, you can do whatever you want. But really, this is about us getting super clear. It's about having golden guardrails around your family. This is the single most important layer of parenting right now that we really need to focus on. They swept us up, like big tech swept us up about 20 years ago. Last slide, I believe, has a couple, that's my contact info. Can you go to the next one? Some resources. These are some of my favorite books. So you can take a screenshot or you can wait for it to come out, but there are so many great books out right now just about parenting kids, boys, girls, etc. My best resource for everything about social media and gaming and how to parent through it is called Glow Kids, the second one there, Glow, Glow Kids. If you want your child to understand why you're so concerned, Glow Kids is your go-to resource. So I've said a whole lot. I want to thank especially the children for being dragged here. I really appreciate it. Sometimes what we do is we do round tables and we order pizza and we sit as families and we make the family data contract. So those are a little more interactive evenings for the kids, but I would highly encourage you, don't do anything tonight. Do not do anything tonight. Today, like Friday's October 1st, I would like you to wait until Veterans Day to do anything. You have to get super clear for the next 4 to 6 weeks if you're gonna make any changes. Do not go home and take all the digital candy away. Don't rip stuff out of the wall, don't freak out. I want you to do nothing because it would be unfair to do that until you're super clear. So I'll open for questions. I will linger after for a few minutes. I just want to thank you so much for being here. This topic, you could go on for days and days and days. I do a really, I would say, more intense and graphic deep dive into what's out there and what our kids are being exposed to for adults. So perhaps I can come back and do that sometime. There's also a great documentary out called Childhood 2.0. It's free on YouTube. If you have 90 minutes, it is the best film about what our kids are going through as told by kids. It's called Childhood 2.0. So I'll open for questions. Yes?
Hi, my name's Allison.
Hi.
I'm a teacher, a virtual teacher. I
Mhm.
teach online 7 hours a day, every day to elementary kids, K through 2nd grade.
God bless you. K through
I'm
gosh.
really enjoying my job. I
Yeah.
have a couple questions about
Right. What I would say to that is there are multiple companies out there, Bark being one of them, that does that for free. So Chromebooks that go home that follow the student at the account level. So Bark for Schools, bark.us will protect those devices for free. I get a little amped up about schools that are handing those out like candy with no protection. It puts parents in a really bad bind. So there are companies that do that for free, and I would highly encourage you to talk to your admin about that, because we can block websites, we can filter, and we can also alert if a student's, like, for example, in Google Docs saying like something inappropriate or bullying or anything. The alert goes to the administrative dashboard and is picked up by the administrator to call parents. Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's a great resource, and it has lesson plans, and so I can tag that on. There's a couple of different websites out here, and Suzanne and I were talking about this at dinner. I've been doing this work since 2005. I've been watching all of this go down. It started to amp up really, really badly in 2008, and then all the way to 2017 when Snapchat came out. Tonight, there's still no one resource I can point you to where you're like, this is how to train your kid, this is what you need to know. There's a bunch of like little websites out there, but there's no clearinghouse of resources. But she did name the best one out there is commonsensemedia.org. If you're wondering about, is this game appropriate? How do I set parental controls? What is this movie about? Common Sense Media is kind of right now the leader in that space. Thank you for those questions. Those are great. Yes.
The screen with the blood flow in the brain,
Yes.
does that stay forever? Or
No, thank God it doesn't stay forever. So her question was like, when the blood flow is depleted, the best thing you can do for that brain is up and moving water. Water will dissipate all of the cortisol and get that back moving. So the great thing about these tiny brains is they regenerate often. And that's why the sleep is so, so crucial to get those cells back. So no, permanent brain damage we have not been able to prove yet. Yeah, we have some theories though about, attention spans and too much use impeding mental health for sure. But we don't have the causal data to say if you game 5 hours a day, this is what's going to happen to your brain. We have correlational data, but not causal. Yes.
You know, I just want to say this is huge for me. We have a 2.5 to 5-year-old, and they'll be playing, and then we say, hey, when the timer goes off, devices are going away. Getting ready for dinner, or you're going to pool, whatever it is, and they freak out. Okay, well now,
Yeah.
I know.
There's
I'm gonna
Seabiscuit.
freak out myself,
Seabiscuit.
and go ahead and take them from them, and let them freak out. Let them give them some water, have them move around, and then have an interaction with them. Don't expect that interaction right now. That frustrates me and my wife so much, but this.
Yeah, so they're like spooked horses, and then you're a spooked horse, and everyone's on fire, right? So, yeah, especially 2.5, 5. I mean, they are like truly like these. They are like bucking all the time, right? I mean, that's just where they are developmentally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I could help. Oh, those days, 2.5 and 5. That's awesome and tough all at the same time. Other questions? Nobody wants to know when to give social media or when to give a phone? I always get those questions. Yes. Yeah, that is not an easy question to answer, and I'm going to be super honest. I don't have a great answer. One solution is to find like-minded parents that band together and that you can be in a group with, but that's really hard, especially as they age. Yeah, I mean, you have your 1 or 2 friends, right? I think this is really the end goal. So 18, we're hoping that they take flight, maybe not leave home, but are an adult type person. So if I work back from 18 to about 10 years old, I have 8 years to teach how to be a good digital citizen, how to use technology for good, and when you screw up, because they will screw up miserably, what is the natural consequence? So in that time frame when they're talking about I'm the only one, I would try to stave off as much as you can for as long as you can. The peer group influences that. Schools influence that. When schools say you need a phone for junior high and high school, that again puts parents in a double bind, especially if their network isn't going to block and filter an alert. So I don't have a great answer because it does become socially exclusionary. We have soccer coaches in Phoenix using Snapchat for junior high practice times. Like, that should not be allowed by the district. You know what I mean? Like, we have to get clear as adults too on what is allowed. But I do know what I've heard from kids is because I can't play Minecraft because I have a mean mom, now they don't want to play with me on the recess playground. And that becomes a social issue for sure. Yes. Is it Skylar? Yeah. Skylar. Is this a church? Okay, so do you want my honest opinion? So I can teach kids how to use Twitter for good, Instagram for good, and even a little bit of TikTok for good. There is no redeeming quality of Snapchat. Like, it is truly the dumbest thing that was ever made. And because you're in the grade that you're in, so the app was made to trade photos that aren't appropriate in 2011. That was how it was made. So filters are fun, little streaks, fun. Like, I totally get it. I have 2 7th grade girls. But there is no redeeming quality of your life. If you add up all the minutes you spend on Snapchat, you could be like so famous at something else. In addition, Snapchat is hooked up with some pretty explicit content that is not appropriate at all. And we also have exchanging of substances on Snapchat that is not helping at all either. So I don't have anything good to say about Snapchat. I'm so sorry. Yes. About Discord? So I'm okay with a little bit of Discord because it is a communication chat feature. But with any app, like, I can bully somebody on LinkedIn, I can bully somebody on Pinterest, I can bully somebody on Nextdoor. Have you seen the Nextdoor app? It's crazy, right? So Discord is a gaming chat kind of feature, and so that has a light side and a dark side to it as well. If you're playing privately with friends and not allowing strangers in, and you have a parent supervising, I can meet you a little bit halfway. What I worry about is when it's public and open and you're allowing people in that you have never met with the whites of your eyes. That's when I worry about Discord. Yes?
So you mentioned the age to get a cell phone and social media. Can you answer those?
Sure. So it depends on the kid. So I don't know if your 2 kids are wired a little differently, but my 4 are, even my twins. So I have one twin that is like crazy about technology and the other doesn't care. We have 2 different sets of expectations and incremental trust building. So you have to get super clear about what is the purpose of the phone. If the purpose of the phone is safety, then you give a really dumb smartphone that is texting only for like 2 years and see if they can like not break the phone and not lose the phone, because that's a thing too, right? And then as they age, you allow different things. Social media, light side, dark side. I mean, everything you read is horrible, but I'm gonna tell you right now that college admissions officers right now are offering kids full ride scholarships through Instagram, through the direct message portal. I have former students who are getting offers from UCLA and other colleges on Instagram because I have taught them you can use Instagram to showcase how awesome you are. If you take your platform and you make it shiny and responsible, the first place an employer is going to go is to see what you look like and what you act like. If you are standing on Instagram with a red cup in your hand and a vape in the other hand, probably not the best first impression. So if grandma wouldn't like it, don't post it. That is my limit. If grandma would be horrified, take it off your platform. So I teach kids starting in 5th grade, get on LinkedIn, turn it to private, and start creating kind of your e-portfolio. You can post photos, you can post videos, you can post music. Show the world who you are. Your kid has to have a digital footprint, and you want it to be shiny and responsible. You can't do that on Snapchat. You can do that on TikTok. You can do that on Twitter. You can do that on Instagram. There's a dark side to all of those platforms. But if you are a parent that's supervising, monitoring, and using apps to monitor, you can allow your child to have some of those things as long as you're alongside of them. That would be my recommendation. So if you have a kid that came out of the womb who is high risk and a high propensity for risk, they're probably going to do that online. If you have a kid who's on the autism spectrum, who has ADD or ADHD, those brains are wired differently. So knowing your child and that this medium is so big is super important before you hand it over. For me, it's about teeny, tiny baby steps, knowing that by 18, they need to know how to use this for good. They need to know how to impact their future using this technology. All right, yes? Yeah, I mean, I think filters are fun. You know, you can put little ears and flowers all over your face and hearts like that. That part of Snapchat, I'm okay with. The other parts of Snapchat, I cannot subscribe to. Yes? Okay.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah?
I have a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
and literally just yesterday he asked me to do that cell phone. So what
Yeah.
would be a good age to introduce to him a cell phone? I don't want to do it anytime soon.
Yeah. So 33% of our third graders have a phone with access to the internet, 8 years old. So you are in the sweetest of spots. So I can't tell you like 12 or 13, but what I can tell you is if you can stave off a phone until middle school, 8th grade, that would be super fabulous. There's really no reason, unless you have some sort of medical condition or safety issue, to have access to that. It really depends on your school, though, because many schools will say, well, we're using technology in the classroom. Each child needs their own device. So that's what puts us in kind of a bind. But if you can stave it off till 12 or 13, I think that's the sweet spot. You are in the sweetest of spots, you too. If you've already given it and you need the train to come back to the station, yeah? I want you to take the next 4 to 6 weeks and figure out which hill you want to die on. If you gave Snapchat 4 years ago, you're probably not going to undo that overnight. And you probably maybe don't want to, like if it's been that long. You have to get really clear about what purpose is this serving, and is this impeding the health and wellness of my child? That's what you need to get clear on. Yes? So it depends on if you're doing digital vegetables or digital candies. So if you come home, get a snack, and do digital candy for 30 minutes, your brain's going to be kind of amped up, right? And then you're going to try to do homework. So I would maybe do the homework first and then do your digital candy. Even though like the first thing you really want to do is the digital. It's just the brain. It would amp up your brain, and it might impede you from doing your homework in the way that your parents probably want you to do it. Yes?
Follow-up question with that.
Sure.
What is a good decompression method from school that you've seen?
Moving bodies, any sort of like just downtime. Like they are grinding all day long for the most part. So I don't know what her interest is, but moving bodies for sure, and or taking a nap. Like these bodies and the adrenal fatigue that we're seeing, like a nap is okay. Like 20-minute nap and then snack, and yeah. I mean, anything that's passive and where she's not engaged in digital candy, at least for that first 20, 30 minutes after school. You can do little chunks, like maybe it's connecting with a couple of friends on text or whatever, doing homework, and then I get like 30 minutes of connecting again. What I see so much of is coming straight home, getting a snack, grinding homework, going to dinner, and then trying to pack all the digital candy in right before bed. And then these brains are up ruminating all night about what Chloe said and what he said and she said. That's where we're seeing the anxiety really ramp up. Yes?
Sorry.
That's okay.
To go along with that, I work from home half day, so when I pick up my son here at 2, we go home, he gets a snack, and I run to get on TV because I have to go straight to the computer to work.
Yeah.
So I put on educational stuff.
Yeah.
Netflix called Number Blocks, and he wants that.
Sure. Yeah.
But when I get off, how long should I wait after? Because there's no way I could get right on his homework.
Yeah.
I'm working at home.
Yeah.
So how long should I wait after he's done watching that and I'm off work to drink the water, get the?
Well, so like what you're describing is digital vegetables, right? So the content's good, the connection's good, the context is good. So that would be different than handing him Roblox for 30 minutes, right? So digital vegetables is actually engaging in something redeeming. So I'd still do the water and moving bodies because he was on a screen, but I would do it pretty immediately as you can. Yeah. Was there a question here? I thought I saw a hand. Yes.
So Katie, you talked a little bit about the act of starting slow and building trust. Specifically, you used the term dumbing down a smartphone a few times. Could you expand a little bit on exactly what you mean by dumbing down a smartphone?
Sure. So if you were to go to the Apple store tonight or any carrier and take an iPhone out of the box, it is set to explicit content, all mature adult, and profanity is on rated R, out of the box. So when I'm talking about dumbing down a phone, it's going into the settings menu and turning all of that off, including the internet, including access to apps. So what you would be handing over as a dumb phone would be literally only the ability to call and to text, and or you can engage FaceTime as well. There are other phone companies out there that are made just for kids. Pinwheel is a new one that's pretty good, and Gab, G-A-B-B. So if all you want them to do is call and text, there's also the Gizmo Watch for younger students. That's a good baby step into technology, right? So when he's asking about dumbing down a smartphone, that means you need to be super aware of, again, big tech. Like, I was like, wait, why does this say mature adult and profanity and explicit? Like, I didn't know until a couple years ago that that's how they were wired. Yes. Go ahead, yeah. About Messenger? Are you messaging with people that you have met with your own eyes? Yeah? And do mom and dad sort of supervise that and have a way to supervise that? Yeah. Then it's pretty safe. Yeah. That's my test. Like, if you've never met somebody, we shouldn't be messaging with them. Yes?
So on the kids' phone about texting and all that,
Yeah.
can you at least play a little bit of games?
So those particular phones, the Gab and the Pinwheel, do not have internet access. They're like starter phones to see if you can like have a phone, not break it, and not lose it. And then you can move maybe when you're like 10, 11, 12 to like a dumb smartphone. Yes?
Given that technology is going to be a part of our children's lives, no matter what the age is, based on your research and your knowledge and all of this, what would you recommend for parents, based on age group, of screen time, let's use just public screen time?
Yeah. So do you want what the research says or what is realistic? So what the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends is no more than 30 minutes for age 0 to 5, and 30 minutes of FaceTime, which is mirroring another person, for 0 to 5. As the kids age 5 and up, the research says no more than 2 hours per day. Most of our kids are on a screen 6 to 8 hours a day doing some digital vegetables and some digital candy. There are many high school students that are on 12 to 16 hours a day. So again, going back to what are they consuming? If they are an online student at her school, they're on 7, 8 hours and then digital candy. So I would say if you can keep the social media and gaming to 2 hours or less, that is currently what the science says is a safe medium. going over that, that's when we start to see some mental health decline. Yes.
So let's talk about the parents because we're role models. And
Yes.
I so many times wanted to get rid of Facebook, just done with it. But every single extracurricular activity has a Facebook page. And if I'm not on that, it don't give me information that's needed for my kids. And so then I get on before bed and I go down that rabbit hole. Like, what can we do to, number one, be better role models, but also set limits ourselves because that rabbit hole is so easy to go down.
So a couple different things. You could use your Apple screen time settings to block yourself. You could also take the notifications off, and you could create an alias account with like your first name and your middle name. And the only thing you have is like the account itself. So you can go get the information from the school, but you're not posting family stuff. Like the only thing you're doing is accessing the school information. So nobody says you have to have an account and post a bunch of stuff. But we do because we got sucked in and everybody likes to brag about themselves. I mean, really, that's really what we're doing. If we really we all want to be seen, heard, and loved, right? So if you truly only want to access school information, I'd make yourself an alias account with your first name and your middle name and test it out yourself. Like, see if you still crave scrolling for hours about what these people are doing. Because if we're really honest, that's what we're doing. And the hours, like the screen time will tell you, you just spent 2 hours on Facebook. Imagine if we spent that on connecting and nutrition and moving our bodies and family. Yes, you've been so patient, Skylar. Oh, is that Skylar? No, that's not Skylar. That's her friend. Yes. So maybe one of the things that you could do in the next 4 to 6 weeks is try to negotiate a little bit. I'm not going to say it's going to work, but I do believe that kids should have a voice in their own use of their device, and it's always worth a try to see if you can finagle a little bit here and there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. There's always one kid that sells their parents out in the crowd. It's okay. We're all doing the best we can. And I think it's great. You're putting golden guardrails, right? You got to get the homework done. So, all right. Yes. Yes.
I know you've spoken to how social media can actually help a child in
Yeah.
into how it can really negatively affect them when they're older getting jobs.
Yeah. So I've talked to employers. Like, I used to hire teachers. The first thing I did was go to their social media. I wanted to see what they look like and what they act like. So whatever I saw, they literally had 2 seconds to impress me or not. I mean, it's so sad, right? But that's what college admissions officers are doing, employers, internships, anything for their future. So it takes parents to sit down and be like, is this the photo that you want showcasing who you are? Because what the college people tell me is okay, she has a 4.2, she has a 4.2, she went to Lake Havasu City High, blah, blah, blah. She played soccer, she ran track. I want to see who this kid is and how they're going to represent UCLA, right? And the only way I can do that, she's a piece of paper. I'm going to go straight to her social media. So that's where LinkedIn comes in. That's a really shiny, responsible platform. They can still post pictures, turn it private in 5th through 9th grade, mid-sophomore year, turning it public. You want your child to be able to be found with something super responsible. So I would be, if I were sitting with a high school student or junior high, every week I'd be like, let's check out what you have. And we're going to delete that and this and add that. Yeah. Yes, last question.
So with that being said, how do we get this information into our school system about how we can use social media or media in a more positive way and not so much
Negativity.
there's not jeopardizing their
Yeah, well, I'm happy to come and talk to whoever. I talk to kids all the time. I think students are the best voice of this. We often have these types of nights without kids, and the kids are the ones in the trenches. So I would advise bringing myself or somebody else like me in to do some education with executive leadership and administration. The amount of hours that administration spends shaming, blaming, and condemning kids, they could make their day job a lot easier. And on that front, if I suspend somebody for sending something inappropriate, saying something inappropriate, when that child comes back, there should be some restoration. That is a child that made a pretty typical mistake. And we've had some kids feel like, I did this and I can't get over it, and they've done some pretty drastic things. So I would be talking about also the restorative justice to the discipline as well. So I'm happy to share with whoever, the powers that be, give them my number. Here you go.
I just wanted to add one more resource. Yes, thank you. If you're sitting and thinking, I need a break, I need to unplug for a minute, Screen Strong Media offers a really nice package of how to unplug for a week. Fall break is coming up. It's right around the corner. My family's done an unplug before where we offer all these other activities, and at the end of the week, and it's unplugged for adults as well, we go and do an unplugged weekend. We've rented cabins where there's nothing to do, or we go out on the lake where there's no devices. It's amazing what your brain will feel like when you've unplugged and really limited that screen time, because we don't even realize we're doing it, and their eyes are on us all the time. I have a lot of the books that Katie shared, a lot of the different resources. I'll be posting on our school Facebook page to get that information out to you. Even hosting a Childhood 2.0 screening together, which would be really nice. A lot of really important information is out there, and it's at your fingertips, and it's very, very easy to introduce into your life once you have that awareness. The awareness is key. So thank you to Katie. Thank you all for coming. We'll linger for questions as well as you stay, but have a great night. If you're a CCA family and you want the free dress coupon, email myself or, no. We have a sign-in sheet. Thank you, Mrs. Ward. There's a sign-in sheet in the back. Go ahead and write your name down. If one of your friends left, have them email us and we'll get one to them. Thank you so much.